Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Sorry there for the technical difficulties, just turning on everyone's cameras and mics. That should be okay now. If anyone is having any issues with their camera or mic, just send me a message and I'll make sure to turn it on. So I'm not going to spend any time talking today because you all should know who we are and who Open Doors is and what the program is about because we're closing it today. Hopefully you already had 2 mentorship sessions at least, and we'll have the third one soon. And today is the final workshop. So thanks so much everyone for joining. And Dina, I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Talita. So yeah, first of all, I'm happy to be today with you for the third and last workshop of our digital sales program. I hope you have enjoyed the previous 2 workshops and you are enjoying as well the one-to-one with your mentors. Myself, I'm enjoying, to be honest. Like it was so good to be connected with you, and as well for the people that I got the opportunity to meet at LinkedIn. It was so good, and I hope you will really getting benefit out of this program. So now for today, let me start sharing my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen? Yes, great. So as I mentioned, you had so far 2 workshops. One was with us about what digital sales and the nature of digital sales, and we talk a little bit about some advantage of being in digital sales world. And then the second workshop was, as you know, with LinkedIn, about LinkedIn profile and how to shine really and to have a amazing profile. Today we'll really focus on interview and the recruitment process of digital sales specifically. So our agenda for today. So first, as you can see, we'll share with you how to attract recruiters and hiring manager to have digital sales interview. Okay, so it's not even about the interview. It's now even Niall will share with you about some tips and tricks about to attract people, hiring manager and recruiters to your profile, your LinkedIn profile, your CV, even if you don't have a digital sales experience or background. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, we'll talk a little bit about the recruitment process. What are the main steps in digital sales, specifically recruitment process? And specifically for Microsoft, that's what we usually do. So we have 3 main things. We have competency-based interview, we have role-play interview, and finally technical interview if it's a technical role. And we'll go through the details of each type of interview. Okay. Number 3, Craig will share with you some interesting as well tips and tricks about what to do before your interview and after your interview, and what are the things that you should really do and the things that you should really avoid doing. Okay. And finally, last but not least, I'm so happy to welcome Yulia today with us, with one of our mentee for the digital sales program. Well, at the end, she will share her perspective from HR point of view, specifically that she has a great experience in HR. Okay. So now let's kick off. So Niall, the floor is yours.
Hiya, folks. Nice to meet you all. Everyone can hear me okay? Okay, I got a couple of thumbs there. Thanks. So I guess, as Dina said, we've talked in previous sessions about the CV and about your LinkedIn profile. And generally speaking, this session is going to be about the actual interview process itself. But we thought it was important just to put in this slide, right? Because there's one piece in between, right, which most people don't really think about, but it's really, really important, right? It's kind of from going from your CV to getting the interview, there's a couple of things you need to think about, right? So sorry, I'm just looking now at the first bullet point, right, and it says open questions, right? So is there anything, I guess, before we jump in, is there anything that people have really specifically that they'd like to get out today or like to cover today? Any kind of burning questions they have, or any areas you think they're getting stuck on regarding kind of interviews and getting the interview? Okay. Maybe people are a bit shy, right? We have another pause for Q&A at the end, maybe. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Dina.
Yeah, but Niall, maybe as well, maybe I will ask something. The question is anyone has in mind, can just share ideas. There is no true and false here. Do you think if you want to be in digital sales role, and I hope that now you have a better understanding of what digital sales mean, do you think what you need to put in your CV or your profile to attract the attention, even if you don't have much experience in digital sales, do you think what are things that you need to highlight in your CV? I will hide the slide so no one can see the
Okay.
slide.
We'll try again at the end, maybe, right, when people are a bit warmed up and maybe have some questions based on what we cover, right? Is Victoria?
People can use the chat function as well if they're
Yeah.
feeling shy.
Yeah.
I know people
Okay,
are
yeah.
usually more inclined to type
Yeah.
rather than speak, especially
I
at the
think-
beginning. So
I think you're right, Victoria. I think as we go, maybe people will have some questions or need clarity maybe on the point. So
yeah,
let's save some questions then for the end, and feel free to interrupt if you have any questions as well. Right. So as I said, you know, you prepare your CV as we've spoken about before, you prepare your LinkedIn profile and you send in your CV. So a lot of times there's a kind of a miscommunication here, right? So the first point, right, is a cliche, but keywords are key, right? So I've worked in the past in recruitment, and I gave an example to the guys last week that I used to recruit for architecture firms, right? And usually you've got architects and you have these what used to be called draftsmen, right? So architect does the high level drawing, and then a draftsman, you know, does it with the ruler and angles and makes everything kind of perfect, right? And obviously that used to be done by hand with rulers and protractors and all sorts of stuff. But obviously that's all been computerized for a long time now, for about 20 years or 25 years. People use computer aided design, so CAD or AutoCAD. And the job title for anybody kind of starting in that role today would usually be CAD technician or AutoCAD technician. And that's just the standard. So when I again, this is 10, 15 years ago, one of my clients was looking for a really experienced CAD technician, needed somebody to kind of lead a whole department. And it was very hard to find them at the time because it was a construction boom in Ireland. I found a guy with fantastic experience, like 35 years with all the top firms in Dublin. And I thought, right, this is going to be great. So I sent across his CV, and I heard nothing back for a couple of days. So I rang a few days later. So, you know, what's going on? Like, you know, surely this is the guy you're looking for. And they just said, well, he doesn't have any CAD experience. You know, that's the crucial piece. And I'm kind of like, well, obviously he has, you know, he's CAD experience. He's a draftsman for 30 years. And literally they just didn't put together that like draftsman and CAD technician, the same job title, right? So you have to remember that firstly, like a computer is going to scan your CV. So definitely a computer is much less likely to pick up on draftsman and CAD technician being the same thing. So just use the terminology. We're not asking you, like when people say modify your CV or have your CV prepared for a particular job, they're not saying make things up or anything like that, but you just use the same terminology that's in the job title, right? And it just means that a computer, it's not reading, but it's just scanning for words, and it's going CAD. It goes, okay, this guy's got loads of CAD. Let's give him the interview. So you have to remember that, first of all, it's screened by a computer before it ever reaches a human eye. So make sure that the keywords are in there in the CV. That's just really important. The second thing that I have there as well, right? Some people will talk about doing one-page CVs. You'll see some of that advice online. I personally, I don't agree with that. I think it always looks cramped and it doesn't look very well. But I think what is important though is to have on the first page, have it really clear on the first page that you have the skills and experience. So that your best qualification or your best experience should be at the top, right? So sometimes people do things chronologically and you have kind of school results and it's irrelevant 5 or 10 years later, right? So make it clear at the top that you're working in this type of role or you have just exactly this qualification for the job, right? So you can have the CV go on to 2 or 3 pages, but if they take a glance at it and go see school results and some job that you did in college, it's just not going to grab their attention. They may have hundreds of CVs to get through, so they're just not going to go, okay, we'll just move on to the next one, maybe find what we need. Craig, you wanted to jump in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to, because this is such a good point. I think that just to kind of amplify what you're saying, a lot of people have said, one-page CVs or, that's any of thing like that. But when you're talking about computer scanning it, it doesn't matter how long it is. But once the human gets to look at it, you got to understand that whatever you want them to read needs to be on the first page. So you can have it be as long as you like, but if there's some really key points that you want to get across, people look at the summary, they look at the experience, and then you can watch them as they start flipping through the pages or scrolling it on the screen, that they're only going to spend maybe 45 seconds on your resume in an initial screening. So whatever you want them to see has to be very, very visible and very, very prominent on that first page in order to do so. Just wanted to add that as my 2 cents.
Yep. People say the best place to hide a dead body is on page 2 of Google search, right? People look at the first page and they don't often get to page 2 and 3 and 4, right? So as I just make it stand out right away, because if they have a stack of 100 CVs, like Greg says, they're just not gonna, may not be 45 seconds, it might be 5 seconds, right? If they don't see what they want to see. So just be really clear on page 1. I'd say as well, and this is from personal experience, right? Actually been on the side of a company that is hiring. They're small companies, right? It's harder to do sometimes with big companies. But seeing a CV, it's just black and white. It's just words on a page, right? And it's sort of easy to ignore that and to kind of go, okay, yeah, a bunch of paper came into me, right? But if you can associate that CV or those words with a person, then maybe they may not get the job, but they'll get kind of advice. They'll be told what's happening in the process. So when working, or if you're applying for a small company, you can often ring the reception. You can sometimes get straight through to the hiring manager. Like I said, if the company's got 10 or 15 or 20 people, you just ring through and just go, hi, how are you? You sound like a nice person, and you just chat to them and say, look, I saw the job there that went up. Do you know, is that still up at the moment? Sometimes it doesn't get taken down for a while. And, I'm looking for this role. I have this kind of experience. And it's very, very hard to ignore that or dismiss that, right? You'll get people are, I believe anyway, inherently good, right? They're going to help you and go, oh, well, no, that's not up anymore, but like they always look for guys in around like December or something, and we hire people at this time of year, or do you know what, actually what we do need is something else, or we hear about this other company. So you'll get that advice, and then if the job is live, you're gonna say, like, if it's me in a small company, I'm going to turn around to the boss and go, yeah, just talk to somebody there. They seem pretty cool. Like, they seem like they know what they're talking about. Did you see their CV come in? And just generally, like, it's a person instead of a piece of paper. So I just think that that's important if you can do that with a small company. And with a big company like Microsoft, like I said, usually LinkedIn is your best approach, right? If you're looking at digital sales for a particular product, look for that in LinkedIn. If you can find somebody who's in that area, it's usually not too hard to find. People in Microsoft and big tech companies are usually quite visible on LinkedIn. So you could maybe just ping them and just say, hey, look, I'm looking to get into digital sales. I'm looking to apply to Microsoft. Is there any pointers maybe you could give me? Any chance you could have a chat with me? And again, most people are pretty open to that. So, with a small company, I just try and ring them straight away. With a bigger company, try and maybe get through to LinkedIn. And like I said, you might just get somebody who turns around to their manager and goes, hey, I spoke with somebody today. Did you see their CV? Like, they sound like they're on the ball. And that's, like I said, it just makes it so much more, like, it's not going to guarantee you the job, but it might get you considered where otherwise your CV might have been dismissed. So if you can, just make yourself known. So again, just wanted to get those 3 points in, really. And then, like I said, just the last bullet point there, as I said, it's just the normal approach is, like I said, you send in the CV, screening software looks at it first of all, and it'll only take the ones that seem to have the right keywords in it or have the right job titles in it. Then you're going to have, like I said, usually Humanize run over it. And at that point, if it's a big company, they could still have a stack of 100 CVs that have kind of got through the screening software. So again, have your skills, as I said, called out really, really clearly on page 1. Then you might have it narrowed down to like 20 people or 15 people. And then usually somebody from HR, they'll call the applicant typically, just kind of get a feel for them. Are they serious about the role, or do they apply for 10,000 things? Are they actually able to work in country? Do they have a visa? The kind of basic sort of screening stuff. and then they'll again, maybe the managers here on the call might clarify, but they'll probably come to a hiring manager with what they feel is maybe the best 10, 15 CVs, something like that. And then from there, it's over to the hiring manager, and they have their own kind of things that they look for. And then, like I said, we'll cover the next steps of the digital sales hiring process as well. But that's how it goes to a manager. So you need to think about each of those steps, you know.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Niall. So that was the first part about what to do, even just to get interview, tips and tricks to get interview. Now we say like, congratulations, you are one of the candidates to go through the interview. So exactly, me myself being a hiring manager, I sit with my, for example, with my with the recruiter, and then we start. So after they did all the, you know, like the prioritization and check the keywords and have a short discussion with you, then we go through them and I start to pick what are the most like the profile, and based on the discussion of the recruiter, how was the discussion. But as I mentioned, is not only the profile, is not only what you have, if you have experience in digital sales or not, it as well what you do before and after. So as Niall was mentioned, if someone will try to, if you by any chance, you know, someone in digital sales, or you know, even you got the chance to know who is the hiring manager, if I receive an LinkedIn message, for example, someone telling me looking forward to the interview today or something like this, that's someone who is unique, who is trying really to make, you know, like, he is proactive, he is trying to start to build relationship and connection. So that's why all what you can do even before interview make a big difference. Now, for the interview process, as I mentioned, for Microsoft specifically, there are some steps, and those are some main steps. So the first thing is something called competency-based interview. It's usually one-to-one with the hiring manager, okay, where we'll discuss your background. There will be a discussion and some question, and we'll go through it now. The second one is the role play interview. So you will receive from Microsoft a customer case, as is a real customer scenario. And you normally during the interview, there will be the interviewer. The interviewer could be another manager. It could be the hiring manager. It could be someone senior in the team who will act as the customer. And you will act as in a real life scenario as you are the digital seller. So you will need to prove how you will handle the customer discussion, how you will handle the customer challenges, how you make it a successful discussion with the customer. Okay. And finally, the technical interview. So the technical interview, it depends on the role. So in digital sales, we have sometimes pure technical interview a little bit, which is like digital cloud solution architect, where really we need to check the technical level of the candidates. But others, they are as well more sales-oriented roles, like, for example, digital account executive or digital acquisition specialist. And my advice, whatever what's role, if you are applying for an IT company as Microsoft, is always important to have a better, like a better understanding of their solution, and to study before the interview. So you will really prove that, okay, I'm interested in Microsoft. I know about your solution. I know about what the key benefits that Microsoft is offering to our customers. Okay. Now let's jump into the first one, which is competency-based interview. So as I mentioned, it's a one-to-one discussion with the hiring manager. But I will tell you something. As we mentioned, CV is just as well words. Me, myself being a hiring manager, what I need to check is not only your experience and background, but your profile and how you will fit to the company culture. Okay, that's a key thing, by the way. And it depends on the company. So as an example, for Microsoft, we have a culture of something called the 3 circles of impact. So any Microsoft employee, in order to make an impact, they need to focus on 3 things. So the first thing is you and your own KPI and how you are progressing in your role, what's your role. But there are 2 other circles, which is how you help others and how you learn from others. So this is a company culture, okay? Because maybe people, they have a different personalities, they cannot fit with this culture. So we start to ask questions and have discussion to see if the person will fit the company culture. Another thing is the profile, okay? So it specifically means to narrow down to digital sales, there are some key personal skill set that we are searching for. As an example, proactivity, someone who is always ready to do things. If something is not working, like let's try to do something else, a person who is proactive, okay, in selling, because sales without proactivity will be challenging. And I would say another key important point is that you are a person that, or the person doesn't take no for an answer. That's the key thing, because being in digital sales, and sometimes we face some customer challenging situation. If the customer tell you, oh, okay, thank you for the discussion, I'm not interested. If you just take this first answer as an like final answer, that's not how it would be. You would try, you will need to try 1, 2, 3 many times, and only to change your way of trying. I tried this, let's try plan B, plan C, etc. So see all that already that we are searching for before even discussing about your experience or your background. That's the key fundamental things that we are searching for being a hiring manager. The last thing, which is an advice, and we'll go through that more in depth now, the example. It's always important to give some concrete examples about you and your personality from real life scenario. Just to give an example, okay? Myself, when I joined digital sales, I was not from any sales or digital sales background. So my main background, I was a researcher, I was in the academia life, and then I decided to do switch in my career. So I remember I said, okay, the first success I got like the call that I have an interview. So I already passed the first step, which is tips and tricks just to have an interview, although I'm from different background. Now, okay, how I'll make sure I will be successful in the interview? And I remember I shared that I will use examples that show my personality and show my skills. So I use a lot of analogy, similarity. As an example, I said, being a lecturer, I used to simplify complex topic to my students so they can absorb it, and we go through it step by step. And I will do the same with my customers. With my customers, there are some IT technical topic or whatever. I will always try to be clear in my way of describing things and next step, so they can absorb the information, they will be convinced, and then happy days, they will buy the solution of Microsoft. Okay, and that's how I got the job like 8 years back. Okay, so now the last thing that I want to share, the thing that I just shared, there are something called STAR method in the competency-based interviews that you can share. You share example. STAR method, which means that S for situation, T for task, A action, and R result. So for example, you can say, yeah, I resolve an important customer issue before in my previous job. It's not as powerful as you make it more specific with concrete examples. So for example, you can use a situation, my customer was unhappy with the support that they were getting from the company or the supplier. And my task was to improve the relationship and the collaboration between the customer and the support team. What I did that show my personality, I was proactive. I organized a weekly call between the support team and customer in order to agree on the way forward. The result, the impact that I did, the customer was happy, everyone was happy, customer felt that they are taken care of, and even they commit to buy more solution from us. Okay, so that was the first interview, which is the competency-based interview. Now switching to competency-based interview, I think that's your part 9. You will continue on something related to competency-based interview, some tips and tricks.
Yeah, you're stuck with me now for 3 slides. So there's usually 3 types of interviews you'll get in Microsoft. Now I think for digital sales, you'll get an element of this competency-based piece, and we'll cover the technical screening and the role play as well, right? So competency-based interviews really, really common in all industries and all company sizes. It's to make you kind of think about it's a little bit like the STAR method. You have to give examples, right? Rather than just talking about I have this quality, I have that quality. These are all going to be ones. Give me an example, right? So if you haven't done a competency-based interview before, you're going to get questions like, tell me about a time, when you had to lead a team to do a complex task and how you managed that team. Tell me about the time when you had a big setback and how you dealt with that setback. Tell me about a time when you had multiple projects to work on and how you how you managed that. So they're quite specific, and you have to give an example of it. So the first bullet point here I've said is like, what like you can make this much easier on yourself, right? You can sit there and wait for the question to arrive and then go, oh, let me think now, when did I, and then you kind of give a question that's just off the top of your head and maybe you're not going to be totally happy with it. So like there are lists everywhere of competency-based interview questions, right? Just Google them, look at the top 20 most common asked questions in competency-based interviews. There's nearly always going to be a question about managing a conflict of some kind, right? Usually something about managing a setback and how you dealt with that. And then there's a bunch of other ones that you can look up. So it's going to make it'll give you more confidence, I think, going into an interview in the first place, right? That you already know that there's an interview is kind of a bit of an unknown for you, right? But actually that like 10, 15, 20 minutes of this interview you're going to absolutely nail, right? You're really well prepared for it. It's going to give you more confidence if you can do that, right? So cover off all the predictable pieces, competency-based interview questions, and the other pieces as well. Like you're going to get asked in an interview, why should we pick you for this job, right? Why did you apply in the first place? So this prepare for the obvious relates to competency-based questions, but also all the obvious interview things that you're probably going to get asked. Don't force yourself to think about them on the fly at the interview. So just prep for those, right? I've the next one here I've just said, like, don't leave your personality at the door, right? Interviews can be stressful, right? And maybe you're trying to hold a lot of information in your head, to prepare for a whole lot of questions, right? And that's totally understandable. But try not to be sort of robotic and like just super, like have to have the right answer and be over concentrate on things. Like, there's a lot of research to show that people buy emotionally, right, and justify after the fact, right? So they'll say that about people buying cars that they like, and then like they come back and they justify it and go, well, actually, it's got really great mileage and it's got really great things after the fact. And hiring managers are often driven emotionally. They really like a person, and then they can kind of later pick up some of the, like, you're not going to get, if you have got no skills and experience, right, you're not going to get in because you're a nice person, right? But at the end of the day, you've got to the interview stage, you probably have a lot of the skills and experience that are there. So as I said, if you can come across as a nice person and a competent person and easygoing person, you are a prospective employee, but you're also a potential colleague, right? Somebody you're gonna have to work with every day. And we don't really want to work with people who seem like they're going to be very, very difficult or hard to work with. Like we just want to work with good people, right? So this is easier said than done. I appreciate that when they say don't stress and be fun in an interview, right? That's hard to do. But I would say, have a chat if you can. How was your weekend? Did you watch the football or if there's some big event going on, did you get a break over the weekend? It's a long weekend, that sort of stuff. If you can have a kind of a chat, like I said, it makes you again a bit more human. So it's always worthwhile just trying to be as relaxed as you can, right? So the last one there again, I think Craig maybe covers in a little bit more detail, but just it's about asking thoughtful questions as well, right? That if you people want a candidate who's interested in the job, interested in the role, right? So, if you ask meaningful questions like if I get this role, when, what type of team am I going to be working in? Like I said, what are your goals as a team within the organization as a manager, right? You can struggle sometimes to talk about like Microsoft's goals, right, as a company over 5 years, right? But as your team, you as a manager, what are your team's kind of goals for next year? Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do better? And how maybe can I help with those? Like I said, I just think it's more relevant than kind of very generic, like when do I start and what's the pay and all that sort of stuff. So that's just kind of important. And then I said, at the end, I'd always finish with a kind of a quick thank you note. Just thanks for your consideration. Appreciate the opportunity. I am very interested. If you're interested in progressing, I'm interested in progressing. I think it looks like a great opportunity to me. That sort of thing's worthwhile doing that. Okay, so this is a big part of digital sales in particular, right? The role play interview. So you are sent information in advance. So I think the last one I did internally was an agriculture, a made up company, right? But they're in the agriculture sphere, this one, and it was, the company has gone from like 1,000 to 2,000 people, for example, over the last couple of years, and they have a lot of old equipment and it's not fit for purpose, and they want to expand into new markets, and just kind of a background on this company, right? There'll be a few kind of obvious pointers to maybe what would be good things to talk about. They'll say, oh, they had a bit of a security scare, right? And they felt somebody might have hacked them, and they're really conscious about that. That might kind of lead you down like, oh, we're going to talk about kind of security products or their security strategy, that type of thing. They'll usually give you like 2 or 3 hints or 4 hints in there as to like specific problems. But also, like I said, if you take into account what the nature of the business itself, whether it's, pardon me, if it's manufacturing or healthcare or agriculture, there are standard industry challenges, right? So again, you can get this information in advance. So go ahead and Google like what kind of challenges is a healthcare company facing, what kind of challenges are big agricultural firms facing, and you'll get that information. And again, it's good to be prepared with the information that they've given you, but I think you can go like a little bit of a step extra. I'll cover again, like I said, the bits and pieces as we go through here, right? But I think again, do your research in advance on that business, the business type, and the industry, and all that sort of stuff, right? So when you start the interview, right, it's theoretically a sales meeting, right? So you will be told in advance, right? You're going to be presenting to the CFO, the CEO, and the CIO, right? For example. So you would imagine, like I said, what kind of important points you want to get across to each of these people, right? So you want to cover off the finance and the business value and stuff like that with the CFO. You want to cover the technical pieces with the CIO, or the business strategy and goals and how it's going to save money or drive sales with the CEO, right? So at the start, you usually start and go, hello, you'll be told this is a first or a second or a third meeting with the customer. It's your final presentation or it's your initial call. So usually you'll introduce yourself and say, look, thanks for meeting with me, I appreciate it. Or following on from our last meeting, this is the situation, right? You'll remember me, I'm Niall Winter. We went through some of your business goals and some of your strategy. We've gone away, we've had a little bit of a think about it, and bullet point 2 here, the purpose of the conversation today, right? So we're not just here for a chat, right? We think that we have solutions for some of the issues that you flagged with us, some common challenges facing the industry, and what we want to talk about today is some of those solutions, right? So lay out the agenda. That's why you're meeting, and what we're going to cover today is 1, our understanding of your business. 2, our understanding of your business challenges. 3, an introduction to some of the tools that we think are going to solve these challenges. 4, what would be the outcomes? Like, how is this going to change your business? How is this going to help your business? And then 5, Q&A. Do you have any kind of questions for us? So that's kind of like a rough agenda you might use in this kind of a role play, right? But just again, there's no right and wrong answers in these. Most of this role play is about seeing how you communicate, right? So like I said, you can't go too far wrong with things like that, but just make sure that the pieces are in place, that you start by introducing yourself and setting an agenda, and then you go through that, as laid out at the start, right? So as I said, definitely you need to discuss your understanding of the business. As I said, you can do a whole ton of research online and understand. I actually did this for a customer quite recently in healthcare, right? And they're finding a number of issues, right? 1, they're getting into litigation, they're being sued all over the place. We kind of read about this all the time, right? Hospitals being liable for any kind of like incident that's happened in the hospital. So that's a big challenge they face. Another one they have is like this explosion of customer data, right? So historically, this just hasn't really been a thing, right? Your doctor is the only with any information on you, written on handwritten notes or typed into Notepad or something like that. But now, like all these digital signals are coming together. You're getting X-rays and MRIs attached to your file. You're getting notes. You're getting physiotherapists and acupuncturists, and all this information is coming in, and it's just becoming very, very large. They're talking about like a data explosion. So these things are really, really common challenges. The other thing they're trying to do is what's the word, like meet you digitally, right? So, you know, rather than having 1,000 people show up at a hospital every day, if you can actually just get 5 minutes online with a doctor and go, well, what is it? And, you know, you coughing, where is it sore or whatever. Often they can kind of triage those things and knock out kind of 500 of those without kind of clogging up the hospital. And it saves you time and money. It saves them time and money. So all of these are kind of like challenges that a healthcare business is seeing every day. And that's kind of going, you know, I've done my research on this. I haven't just sat there and wait for you to tell me your challenges, right? You said, you know, you have this issue with data and security. Also, you know, are you seeing this big data explosion? How are you kind of storing all of these customer files, right? Sorry, Dina, you lost me there. So,
yeah, no, just because we need just to accelerate. We'll not have the time to.
Sorry. Okay. So I'll run through more quickly then, right? So understand the goals, bring them some ideas, right? And then usually you'll focus on one impact. So let's talk about this huge explosion of data. You know, we feel that with all these different things, one centralized database that we can provide for you is going to solve that. Again, you know, there's a huge portfolio of things in Azure. Focus on one that you can actually know well, and then, like I said, just present as the business value. What is it, and that you're solving, and how you're going to solve it. Bullet point 5 there. This is so go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I was about to say about 0.95 because yes, it depends on the industry and the customer case, but I think for any seller, goal number 5 is so important.
Yes. So this is, again, sales 101, right? Every business in the world uses this. Like it's BANT, and it's budget, authority, need, and timeline, right? So these are 4 things you're going to need to establish in every kind of a sales conversation or early in the sales stage. So budget, does the customer understand the cost? It's great to have all these fancy plans, but if this is going to cost you $1 million in a year, is the business going to back that, or are we just kind of wasting our time talking about it here, right? So they have to have an understanding of what the costs are going to be, and then a likelihood that they'll be able to get that budget. There has to be a clear need. It doesn't happen quite so often. Usually need is the start of the conversation, but sometimes we do get people coming to us and going, yeah, we're hearing about OpenAI, we're hearing about big data, we should be doing something around that. You know, what should we be talking about? And you kind of go around in circles, but there isn't a clear need to be solved. So budget, need. The other thing is authority. Again, like it happens where, you know, you're just speaking with somebody who's got pipe dreams of running these big, huge projects, but it's never going to have the permissions that it needs from the board of directors or from the people with the purse strings. And then timelines, like, are you actually planning on doing this in the near future, or is this again something that maybe you'd like to do sometime, but we'll see if we've got time for it? And if there's no urgency to it, like I said, it's never going to happen in the short term, right? And then really, really important. I've made this mistake a long time ago in my career where you've done a great presentation. You go, that they say to you, that's great, thanks for coming in, really appreciate it. Yeah, we'll let you know. That's really, thanks, great, thanks very much, bye bye. And then there's like, you know, you're trying to chase them, and what happened, and did you like it, and are we going to go any further, and we have another meeting. But you just make a concrete step and just go, that's great. So look at, you know, when do you think you're going to be able to make a decision? You know, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'll follow up in a week's time. I'll follow up in 2 weeks' time. You know, we'll need to bring this to the board. Okay, yeah, when would that be? Is that, you know, do you meet on a Friday? Do you meet on a Monday? That's great. Well, look, I'll give you a day or two beyond that. Like, I'll come back to you on Wednesday. Is that okay? So just setting a next step, or sometimes it means you have to set up a technical conversation with your techies to kind of answer some really in-depth questions. And you just say, no problems. And when we do that on Monday, I'm going to send something. And I often use it. If you can't get an exact date, I go, how about I'll send a placeholder for next Wednesday afternoon, right? And if you need to move it, move it. If you need to propose an alternate time, you can move it. But just, it's something that's already in the diary. It's harder to get rid of, right? So that's for the role play interview. I will try and speed up now as well. Yeah. So this is a lot more text in here, but a lot quicker, right? So again, this is usually about, as I said, understanding, like preparing for the things that you know are going to come up, right? You're talking to Microsoft. Microsoft has on-premise and Windows and all the rest, but coming in digital sales, you know you're going to be talking probably about one of the Microsoft 3 big clouds. So it's Dynamics, it's Azure, or it's Microsoft 365. So understanding what the products are, and like I said, a smaller tech company maybe wouldn't, and they'll call out in advance, like they're going to sell either Dell or HP or IBM. Not all three of them typically, right? They pick their one vendor. So just know what that is. And what are, like, again, really simple Google, what are the Cisco big products, right? Firewalls and networking and all that sort of stuff. So understand the company in terms of their technology stack. Again, there's lots of places where you can get free credit. So if you can practice with the technology, right? So I work with Azure, you can get free credit. You can get I think it's 100, and it changes all the time, but I think there's $150 that anybody can sign up and get. And then you've got your free Azure account. You can go in, you can play around. And again, it's just going a little bit above and beyond what most people will do, right? To say, well, I tried this and I tried that, So again, communicating effectively, right? So we are talking about complicated things a lot of the time in technology, but you should practice this. Really talk with somebody who's non-technical, your friend, your granny, your 5-year-old niece or nephew, right? If you can explain in simple layman's terms what a thing does, then that really means you kind of understand it, right? If you can't explain it and you find you're using a lot of jargon, you're going to get it mixed up in the interview. You're going to trip over it, right? So just make sure that you can communicate a message and a business value really, really clearly to somebody why you would want a thing. So again, you might be asked to actually solve problems. This is usually, again, in the more technical roles, right? For digital sales, we have like a lot of sales people, and we have technical people as well. So for our cloud architects, they might be asked to solve a common problem. How would you secure XYZ database? And you're thinking about firewalls, and you're thinking about the security products on top of it. So concrete solutions, like I said, for the products that you're going to be talking about. We've talked about this already, right? But it's hard to do. Easy to say it. Just be confident, right? But again, if you practice these things in advance and practice for the questions that are going to come up, you're going to be a lot more confident, right? Again, if you can demonstrate concrete examples, it's like with interpersonal skills and the STAR method, rather than just saying you're good at something. If you can give examples of a time that you did that, again, if it's some securing some database, well, I did this when I was in my last company, and here's how we did it, and we had this challenge, and here's how we solved it, right? And sorry, again, just prepping it again, right? Prepare the questions, know what questions you're likely to get asked, and as I said, be ready for them to be answered. And again, just gives you that bit of confidence going in. And great. I think that's me, right?
Yeah, great.
Apologies for going over, right?
No, it's okay. Craig?
Thank you. And this is just going to be adding on to kind of what we've heard up to this point. And just from a little bit of background, I hired about 40 people last year, and I was doing about 10 to 15 interviews on average a week. So I certainly figured out some things and how I did interviews and the things in which I was looking for. So I'm kind of distilling those down into a few tips and tricks to share with you. The first thing is just make sure you do your homework. Understand who you're going to be talking to. Look up the folks on LinkedIn that you will be speaking with, and understand a little bit about their role and get a little bit of their background in your mind. If the hiring manager were to show up to a phone call and they don't know who you are and they don't know what they're interviewing you for, it would be a big warning sign for the interview that you're about to do. The same thing, it goes the other direction. If I were to talk to somebody and they don't know who I am and they don't know what I'm hiring for, it's a big red flag on the interview. So definitely make sure that you do your homework. And part of doing that homework is really creating a plan. You want to prepare the things that you have to say. Many people go into interviews feeling like it is very much an ad lib, or that they're speaking contemporaneously off the cuff, but it doesn't have to be. There are standard things throughout interviews. They ask you, tell me about yourself. They ask you some standard questions that that Niall has mentioned earlier. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? I had 4 questions that I always asked, and I stuck to them every time. The first one being, tell me about yourself. And that is a question you can absolutely prepare for in advance. You don't have to think of it on the fly. The other thing I want to mention is that you're generally going to be doing a lot of these interviews in this type of format, talking over Teams or some other type of video software. You can have notes. So I can have notes here, 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 here that are out of the screen that you can use to remind yourself of what you want to say and how you want to formulate your sentences. So definitely have a plan. Be curious. So ask questions. More important than the answers that you give me are the questions that you ask me. It shows a lot more insight and depth of preparation based on the questions that come to me. And not just standard ones like, what do you like about working at Microsoft? You want to go a little bit deeper than some of those questions. Ask the interviewer about themselves. How did you get the role? What do you like about this job? People love talking about themselves. To me, one of the best indications of how well an interview goes is if I look at my watch or not. If I feel like I'm struggling to really draw the other person out, or there's a lot of silence coming from the other screen, that to me is indicative of what our customer's experience is going to be in a sales related environment. So if they're difficult to talk to, I will be wondering if they're going to be difficult for a customer to talk to. Additionally, and I just paused for 5 seconds there for a reason. It's okay to think about something for a second. It's okay to pause in your responses. And I read a statistic that we give ourselves 1/3 of a time to respond than we would give somebody else. So take a second. You don't need to fill the air, and think about what you're going to say before you say it. Number 4, connect on LinkedIn. So you definitely want to, this is all part of your follow-up. And I know that it was mentioned previously to say thank you, and that's going to be point 5 for me. But part of that is connecting in on LinkedIn and doing some of these sales related activities that a sales manager would expect you to do. They would expect you to connect. They would expect you to follow up. They would expect you to say thank you. So you definitely want to reach out and say thank you. It's nice to hear as the interviewer, and it's really in that instance, it's the best time to talk about next steps. You can ask them, and I know we mentioned earlier, level your intent by after saying thank you, but also like, hey, how did I do on the interview? You can ask a very frank question. That leads me to the next slide. If we can skip one slide forward.
Dina?
Dina
looks like she's frozen, maybe.
Yep. Frozen. All right.
We've lost Dina. I'll share my screen. Oh, I can't share. I can't actually share.
Let me, I think I could share mine.
I'll give you permission. Give me 1 second there.
All right. Oh, Dina's back.
Yes,
Hey,
I'm
Dina.
sorry for this.
I thought you were just really a fan of this slide and we're just going to stay on it for a while.
I thought that you were pausing to think. So I said, oh my God, correct. It took more than 5 minutes, to do the pause, and then there is something wrong.
Can you go to the next one, the slide 11, please? And so one of the most important things that I think is necessary if you're in a sales or a digital sales interview is close the interview. You want to ask closing questions just like you would if you were in a sales environment. How did I do? Did I answer all of your questions? Is there anything that you feel would prevent me from being successful in this role? So these are all questions that you can ask the interviewer at the end of your interview. And it accomplishes 2 things. Number 1, it reinforces your sales credentials. And number 2, it gives you one last opportunity to overcome any potential negatives within the interview itself. You didn't answer a question right, and maybe this is a chance to pick that question back up and answer it again. You get a second crack at it. And if we can go to slide 12. Some real quick do's and don'ts on the next slide. So the last ones I want to mention here, and I kind of put these pictorially just so we would remember them. You're on camera, so you need to be dressed up from at least here up. That's always a good thing. Always make sure you turn on your camera. It's so much more engaging if we're communicating back and forth over the camera. Speak slowly and pause after questions. To me, this is really, really important because if we have issues of internet latency or lag, giving them a chance so you're not constantly talking over each other is really, really good. Have your LinkedIn open or have a CV or resume in front of you so that you can reference it and point out things about your background. And I would usually split my screen. I would have my LinkedIn open and I would have the person who's interviewing me, theirs open as well. So I can reference their background, I can reference my background, and I have something to look at. Again, I can put all stuff around here. I can have all my notes that I'm using to be more productive and more useful in the interview. And a few of my don'ts: don't give one-word answers. That's really annoying. Hey, do you have experience with this? Yes. Okay, it's very, very frustrating for the interviewer. They want to have more conversation with you. Don't be in a coffee shop or a place like that. I know there's a little bit of commotion behind me, but if I were doing an interview, I'd be in a different room. You want to be in a place that's quiet. I've heard dishes clanging. I've heard coffee being poured. I've heard all kinds of things on phones or on video interviews. I would never answer, I don't know. So never just say, I don't know. If I were to be asked a question where I don't know the answer, I would tell them what's my process to go find that answer. So that's a great question. I don't know how to do it, but here's my process that I go through when I don't know the answer or when I need to go find information. And then you can start to tell a process answer as opposed to an answer. And then finally, don't interrupt. It's one of the most frustrating things from going back and forth, especially in the video call format. Again, also why you give a little bit of a pause. You don't want to interrupt. If you start talking over each other, it becomes very frustrating conversation for both people. I tend to want to interrupt because I get super excited really quickly, and I have to kind of control myself and rein myself in. So those are a little bit of my my tips and tricks and do's and don'ts for the interview process. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Greg. So I think now it's for, as I mentioned, Julia. We have Julia, one of the mentee of Digital Sales Program, where she can share the perspective from HR point of view rather than just hiring manager, etc. So Julia, the floor is yours.
Yeah, actually, thank you so much. I actually would like to share my experience of seeking job in Ireland and tell you actually what helped me to get a job. So from the other side, like from the job seekers. So if I mention something that was already said before, I'm really sorry about this. There are so many points were said, like I also wanted to speak about StarMeted and everything else, but it was also useful for me. And I'm sorry for my English because it's not my native language and I just in the middle of practicing it. So I will be very brief. When I came from Ukraine to Ireland last March, I was still able to continue my work remotely, and I successfully managed to do it till the last autumn. And then, as many IT companies, my company decided to reduce its staff, and I had to I started to seek the similar job of HR role, preferably in IT, as I had a rich experience working in tech companies. And my first steps were, as is already were said, to update LinkedIn, knowing the world of mouse is very efficient in Ireland. And I asked my previous employers and some Irish friends to write me references in my profile. I also added location, bio, and as much skills as I could. And also to know these tips, I've checked a few LinkedIn video, and I bought a premium account for a few months. And it was essential for me to get invitation from recruiters. But unfortunately, the role I wanted, HR manager, required at least 1 year of experience working in Ireland and knowing the Irish legislation and some employers law, which obviously I didn't have at that moment. So I failed many interviews, and it took me time to understand that I need to start from something more basic to get an experience. So recently I was offered a role of HR partner in Irish company when I can get experience working in Ireland and then maybe move further. So from as a job seeker point of view, I'd like to summarize all said before and outline a few successful points which actually worked for me. I'm sorry again if I repeat something that was said before. My points of success were to learn as much as possible about the company and the role it needs, and check the sites and some available informational sources. Also align your experience story with the role requirements as much as possible, and your self-presentation is not a biographical story. The interviewer doesn't ask you about your life story or something else. What you can bring to the table is just the problem you can solve. This is the main point I understood. So identify your strengths and knowledge gaps and how you leverage them in the future, or maybe at the moment. Learn your CV. You have to know the details and timeline just in a perfect way. As it was said already, prepare answers to the most typical questions, like it was said, and prepare your questions for the interviewer. They also were mentioned before. And if you find speaking in English challenging, just practice. Don't afraid to use some small talks. They're helping to break the ice, and such kind of things are important if you are worrying a bit. So also you have to look professionally, and don't when you don't understand the questions, just don't be afraid to ask one more time. Like, excuse me, could you repeat one more time, or could you rephrase your questions, or you can repeat the questions and ask, you meant A, B, C, D, right? So you can ask it. That was actually helping me much to get a job, and I think that was essential to those whose English was not native. Thank you. That's what the main points I would like to share. And I also thank you for your tips. They were really useful. Thank you for sharing this with us.
Great, thank you, Julia, and thank you, everyone. I hope it was beneficial for everyone, the session today. I know that we're out of time by 3 minutes, but feel free to ask any question. I can take some time extra if you want. So if there are any question, if anyone would like to ask something in the chat. Yes, Abdul.
If anyone needs to run, the session is being recorded, so we can share that afterwards.
Yes, Abdul.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
All right. Brilliant presentation. Thanks you for all you've done for us, and honestly, it's been incredible watching you talking about your experiences and what you went through. My question is, it's not a question actually, it's a suggestion to Talita. We're closing today, right? Why now having a lunch with all these incredible people at Microsoft? I mean, and if you can have such a lunch with them as a closing, that would be great.
Sorry, do you mean you want to keep in contact with everyone?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose given, consent from everyone, if the mentors and the mentees would like to have their email addresses or LinkedIn profiles shared, then everyone can connect and keep in touch after the program. I think I have all the mentors' LinkedIn profiles. We can just get their consent to make sure everyone is happy with that. And then I can get the LinkedIn profiles that you should all have by now from the mentees and share that with the mentors as well. And the other participants. You will learn a lot from each other as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Abdul. I think Victoria has a question.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you listen to me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Lovely. Well, good afternoon, and thanks all for sharing your experience. Was really nice to listen to all of you in this session and in all sessions, all previous sessions. I want to ask, what skills you need to success, and I mean both. That we already talked about some soft skills, but also like hard skills. I am talking about like the first step, the CV moment in particular, and also like what I mean about the core competences like that you need in order to succeed and to get an opportunity to a job interview. That in one hand. And the second question or second block is that if you can recommend some courses or workshops in order to improve these skills and to progress, and things that maybe call the attention for interviewers and potential employers. Thank you.
Could I answer that one kind of quickly? I think I might have mentioned this in a previous session. I don't know if you were at that particular one, right? So I would also say like when you're interviewed for a role, typically you're interviewed with people who are quite similar to yourself in terms of skills and experience, right? So you're not going to be interviewed alongside somebody who's like a PhD with 50 years experience and has run companies doing that kind of business, right? You're going to probably interview against people like other people here on the call, right, with similar experiences. So you kind of have to do, as you said, find a little bit extra that you can do to stand out from a crowd of quite similarly qualified people. So obviously you need to highlight the qualifications you have, the experiences you have, but there are pretty much every single tech company, Microsoft. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, I went for an interview a long time ago. Thought I did quite well. And one of the pieces of feedback I got from the hiring manager is that I didn't have any sales qualifications from tech companies. Now I had done one years before, and I thought it didn't have a lot of value, right? I watched 2 or 3 hours of videos and did a quiz at the end of it, and it said, "Oh, congratulations, you're a certified Facebook for business salesperson," or something like that, right? But some people do put quite a lot of store in that, and I basically went through Cisco, Citrix, VMware, Microsoft, IBM, HP, and a bunch of others. And you can get actually quite a lot of technical qualifications through watching online videos of 2 or 3 hours and then do a test and exam at the end of it. Some of the Microsoft ones are chargeable. I know the Cisco one is definitely chargeable, but I know Citrix and VMware have a certified sales professional qualification. So you can do all of those very easily. That's for the kind of badges, if you like, and a lot of people won't have that going into your interview, and you can have that under your belt. And then if you just look up free Microsoft training, there's a whole bunch of like free modules that you can do on demand, but there's actually training days that they have in the UK mostly. I'm sure they have them in France and Germany, other countries, but the UK do full training days. Like I said, it's a 9 to 5, 8-hour training course, and they'll very often give you an exam voucher at the end of it. So as I said, the Microsoft exams typically chargeable, but if you do some of these courses, they do them on Azure, they do them on Dynamics, they do them on Office 365, and you can do You can do an exam at the end of it for free. They give you an exam voucher. So really worthwhile doing those, particularly if you're interested in Microsoft and digital sales, or you get those certifications done. And again, it's just you're one up and everybody else is going for the same role, you know. And while we're on the call, I'll try and find the link, put it in the next 5 minutes.
So any other question? I can say, Abdul, do you have another question, Abdul?
Yes. Yes, it's just a question that I used to ask, and I just remember, and I decided to ask the question. Each one of you can answer to that question. What is the biggest challenge that you ever faced, and how do you overcome it as a digital sales?
Sorry, yeah, I didn't get the question,
Yeah.
Abdul. Sorry, can you repeat it?
Yes, I said, what is the biggest challenge that you ever faced in your career, and how have you overcome it?
So you're asking the biggest challenge in terms of like, are you directing the question at someone specific for Microsoft, or anyone can take it?
Yeah, Medha. Dina?
Dina?
Yes.
Dina, any big challenges you faced during your digital sales career and how you overcame it?
There is always challenge, and that's the beauty out of it, I think.
That's
The
a good
beauty in
interview
how-
question. Tell us
I
about
think
a time when you faced a difficult challenge and how you overcame it.
So just to make sure that I well understand the question, you mean during like doing the role, like being a digital seller, what are the challenges that we face?
Yeah, but the biggest one, yeah. I know you always having challenge, but what was the biggest one? The one that scares you the most? And
Yeah, is not making my target. I'm a seller at the end, so I need to make my target.
I think
So
maybe
I would say,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead, man.
No, I think the way he's phrasing it is like if you were asked that question in an interview, how because it is a tough question to get asked, right? Because you're having to talk about something that went badly or went wrong. Like, so I think maybe that's maybe what you're asking, is it that how to answer that question, right?
Yes.
If I again, I'll let Dina, I think it's frozen. Oh no, you're back, Dina. Sorry. I think if you just again show humility and you say, well, like I've one that sticks in my mind. It's the truth. It's not a pre-prepped answer, right? I worked in a small tech company, and I had this great deal, and the boss had asked me about 1 million times, and the sales manager, everyone was really enthusiastic. It went really, really well. And we didn't get the deal, basically. And it was a big loss for me. The business thought this would be a huge contract coming in, and it was sort of a loss to everybody, right? And that was really, really tough. And I think like that would be a disappointment. But I think the way to answer that question is to tell people about that. But like, what did I learn from that? Like that's the key, right? We all make mistakes. We all have losses. We all do these kind of things wrong, right? But did you learn from it? Like that's how I would approach it. And I went back and I analyzed what I did and what I could have done differently. And it was very clear to me that I think we had just done a fantastic job, and they just said they needed time. And I didn't do with the bullet point we talked about earlier, setting next steps, right? So it was kind of left open, and I left them with a lot of time. And in that kind of 2, 3, 4 week period when they didn't have an answer for me, they started looking at other options, and somebody come up with a solution that I didn't even know they wanted, right? So I said, look, it was clear to me that if I had been set a next step and said, we'll speak about this next week or 2 weeks time, that if I had followed up more closely with them, that maybe we would have won that. Maybe we wouldn't have done, but maybe we would have won that deal. And that's definitely, I made that mistake, and I wouldn't do that kind of thing again. I've learned from it. So I think that way you can show a difficulty, but also put a positive spin on it,
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Maybe a final question, and we can wrap up. Julia. Go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I'm without camera, something wrong with the internet. So I'm basically I'm project manager and I have some experience, but this all is from Ukraine. So now I'm looking for a job in Ireland and I do it for quite long time. I'm seeking now Prince 2 qualification here in Ireland, but so far I didn't get it. So I think this is one of the point I don't have many interviews, but when I look for, when I go through ads, I find mostly recruitment company there, and I cannot write to directly to hiring manager or something like that. So wouldn't be annoying to managers if I just go through companies that I would like to work in and introduce myself to managers like in LinkedIn or email, something like that?
Well, from my
Thank you.
perspective, it's really okay, and I usually am getting that on LinkedIn, and so for sure, it depends. But like to get this kind of message that show proactivity that you can, but you need as well to be smart in the message that you will send. Choose the key things, you know, not really long message and not really short message. Hi, can we talk or something like this? I would say be really smart in the things that you want to show in the message and what you are interested to have a discussion with the hiring manager. Like it depends for sure on the hiring manager, but I'm reflecting on my own personality and profile. Opposite, like I like when people like doing this because maybe in parallel that I'm having in mind that maybe I will open a role in my team and I didn't open it yet, but it's on my mind, and then someone just texts me, so it's a good opportunity. So I would say no harm to always try and see. That's from my point of view.
Yeah, and I would
Thank
I'll just add to that too. You know, it can seem like if you go through LinkedIn and you message 50 people in a row, it can seem like, wow, I'm really bothering a lot of people. But from their perspective, that's just one person that got one note. It's not that big of a deal. I wouldn't say take one company and then message everyone in that company. I would split it across many companies, and then reach out to the key people that you feel like in each company. But I agree. To me, an email or a message on LinkedIn it's a very light touch. It's, you know, it's not very intrusive. It's not a big deal. But when you hit the right person, as Dina said, is looking for that or is thinking about it, it's like a sign almost, like, oh wow, I was just thinking about that and this person reached out. It's a really good it's a really good opportunity. But just, I think it's totally fine, and my perspective is I always err on reaching out. People can always tell me to stop, you know, and okay, fine, that's no problem. Or they don't have to accept your invite, or they can delete your message, any number of things. But I don't have any problem with people reaching out. I have people reach out to me all the time. Hey, are you looking for this? Are you looking for this? I respond to every single one of them. Like there's everyone that reaches out to me, I'm going to respond to. So I mean, that's my personal experience.
Thank you. Yeah, from my side, I think I reach out to so many people and they that I annoy them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd agree with the folks, and I would just caution of copy and paste. Be very careful that the message isn't generic. The number of times you get a kind of a message that says insert name here type of thing, or
Yeah,
hiya
that's a good
John,
point.
and I'm like, I'm not John. And like I've been offered jobs even by recruiters, like for like a French speaking doctor in Germany, and I'm like, I don't live in Germany. I don't speak French. I'm not a doctor. Like it's so stupid and so annoying, and it'll put you in a bad light maybe if the message isn't good. So as much as possible, it's hard with a lot of jobs, but tailor it if you can. Just go, look, I really like Microsoft. You know, I heard what Satya Nadella said about, the company going green and being carbon neutral by 2030 and carbon negative by 2040. That's the kind of company I want to work for. A bit more than hi, I'm looking for a job. Let me know if you have anything. If you just tailor it a little bit, again, within reason, you got a lot of tailoring to do with a lot of jobs, but a personal note, like I said, that mentions the person by name, why you might be interested in the company, and why you might have the skills for it, I think goes a long way.
Thank you.
I've shared the training days, by the way, in the chat. Some of them have free exam vouchers at the end, some of them don't. So just you can check them out.
Thanks, Niall. Victoria, I'm not sure if you have another question or you just left your hand up. Victoria, are you there? The hand is no longer
Sorry,
up.
my hand up. Sorry for that.
No problem.
Nice.
No problem.
Always
Just
happen
checking.
on James.
So I think we'll wrap up here. Thanks everyone for attending. Sorry we went a little late, but it was very, very useful information. So I hope everyone found it helpful. As always, we're available over email if you have any further questions. We'll share the recording later so you can pick up on anything that you might have missed, or yeah, if you just forget anything or want to revisit it before your next interview. So thanks everyone, and thanks all the speakers from Microsoft. We really appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.